This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joire.
Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joire, and today is Wednesday, March 13th, 2019, and my guest is Richard Lai of Engadget. Hi, Richard. How are you?
Yay! Thanks for having me, Miriam. Always a great pleasure to talk banter with you. So
Absolutely. You know, it's episode 101. You were on episode 1, so I figured I can have you on every 100th episode, you know, or something.
This is amazing.
Isn't it?
And congratulations on this milestone, by the way.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's a show a week, roughly. There has been weeks with 2 shows. Like, every time I go to, like, MWC or CES or Google I/O, I usually give people 2 shows. One that's, like, one-on-one that kind of analyzes the early parts of the show. And then the next show, I usually do a group thing where everybody just has a good time, you know?
Well, that's what matters, really. It's all about having a good time.
It's what a podcast should be. I think a podcast should be informative and entertaining. And so I try to have people on that can do both. And you obviously are best of the breed. So here you are.
Too kind. Too kind.
You deserve it. Speaking of best of the breed, maybe, and this is up for debate, let's talk about the kind of elephant in the room of the week of phone news. And that's the Vivo Apex, a bunch of journalists gathered in Hong Kong. I didn't know this was going on. I don't really have that great of a relationship in the sense that I haven't really connected with the Vivo team very well. Probably because I'm not big enough for them. But, you know, they invited folks like David Ruddock and a bunch of others to fly all the way out there to Hong Kong, to your city. For you, it was probably just a bus ride or whatever, right? Subway ride. But
just across the harbor.
There you go.
Yeah.
Just across the way. So what is your... You know, what are your thoughts on this crazy, quote-unquote, portless phone? I have issues with that wording, by the way, because I believe that magnetic thing on the back is a port.
It's a port. Yeah, so, I mean, for those who aren't familiar with this, so this is the Vivo Apex 2019 edition. The reason why I'm pointing this out is because this is the second Apex phone from Vivo. Last year, it was the Apex where they introduced this concept of an all-screen design with a pop-up camera and a in-display fingerprint reader that took up half the screen's space. But obviously that never entered mass production. But the rest of the phone ended up being the Vivo Vivo NEX.
That's right.
So this is why I'm so excited for this new Vivo Apex 2019. It's an all-glass design. Very brave, very ballsy of them to do that. But it looks so good, and it felt nice in my hands too. You can imagine it's like a very well polished slab of, I want to say pebble.
Yeah.
I don't know what's marble, whatever it is. It's a piece of gem.
And
that's
so
how I would put it.
How do they achieve that? I mean, obviously, it sounds to me more like almost ceramic than glass.
I mean, it's definitely glass for sure. It does require a special process because they didn't just shape this piece of glass into this, whatever you want to call it.
Shell,
like
right?
Shell-like kind of shape. They also added extra thickness around the bezel to make sure it doesn't crack right away when it's dropped and when it lands on a corner. Which, by the way...
Yeah, you have a great story about that. I didn't want to bring it up because I don't want to embarrass you, but...
Oh, no. I mean, that's how I lead my article, and it's literally in the first paragraph. So basically, I was trying to hold 2 Apex units in one hand for a photo. You know, there's one of the front and one of the back. Yeah,
that thing where we like to do the cards in our hands thing, right? Where we hold the camera on the right hand and then hold them together on the left, and it's tricky. It's tricky.
It's tricky, and them being made out of glass. Yeah, I should have known better. One of them slipped off my hand, and guess what? It landed on another Apex, which was on the table, and smash.
Oh,
that phone was totaled.
Like, did it actually break in half that you could see parts of it inside?
No, not that bad. It's just the glass part that shattered.
The front, the display
part. The back.
Okay.
The back.
Wow.
Yeah. But luckily, the other phone, the phone that escaped from my hand, seemed fine. So,
how incredible!
Yeah, so it's very interesting, isn't it? It is how one phone of the same kind just totally destroyed the other. And yeah, so I mean, to be fair, in Vivo's defense, and I'm very sorry about that. Again, I apologize to Vivo's team. I know they have very few units in existence. So, oh my God.
And I'm sure each of them is worth a penny.
A penny, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I've lost track of what I was going to say.
You're going to say it's pretty damn durable despite you being a klutz?
yeah, basically. So it kind of, yeah, so in Vivo's defense, any phone with a glass back, or the front for that matter, would have shattered with that kind of impact anyway.
True.
But what I was impressed with or surprised by was the fact that the other phone that landed on the unfortunate device was left undamaged.
Right.
So clearly, it kind of shows that their design with that extra thickness around the bezel actually works. But it's a costly process as well. It involves CNC machining, hot bending, special grinding methods, and all that. But what's interesting is that, according to the product manager I spoke with, Mr. Ding said there's a very good chance that they will actually mass produce a glass-like device based on its design.
It makes sense.
So they're saying it's possible. They're saying it's actually feasible to mass produce it. He didn't say anything about costs, nothing about volume. So who knows? Maybe they can still do it. But it's definitely happening maybe sometime this year. So we shall see.
I'm excited by that because, they delivered a big chunk of the promise of the last year's product, right? The last year Apex prototype or concept. And this year, there's other things we're about to talk about that I think are kind of blowing my mind about this phone. But hopefully they can at least deliver on part of this by giving us an all-glass phone. And not many people are probably going to get in arms. Oh, come on, we don't need more glass because the glass shatters, etc. But I just feel like there's something about the material that the glass as a material for phones that makes them feel so amazing in hand. Much better, in my opinion, than machined unibody aluminum or stainless. And of course, it has all kinds of advantages, antenna placements, especially in this crazy 5G world we're about to enter. This is a 5G phone, right?
Yeah, it is indeed. It's powered by Snapdragon 855, and they say it's got a 5G modem, so I guess it's got to be the X50 modem.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got 12 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage, but none of that matters anyway. It's all... Yeah, these figures, they can throw whatever inside or throw whatever is available at the time when they decide to mass produce this anyway. But what's really interesting here in terms of components is the fact that not only does this Apex do in-display fingerprint reading, it actually it works across the entire screen.
Yeah, insane.
And
multi-fingers too, right? So you can say, like, I want 3 fingers, these specific 3 fingers or whatever, 2 fingers to be the unlock, right?
Well, for the demo, they only enabled 2-finger authentication. Yeah. But, so not only that, the registration process was also so much quicker. I only had to tap twice, and that was it.
Is it ultrasonic or optical? Would they specify? It's optical. Wow.
Optical. I did ask specifically about that, and they said, considering power consumption and maturity of what they already have, they decided that optical was still the way forward. And as you can see, it works.
Yeah.
The registration part, it was very fast. I think the recognition was quite fast as well. I mean, obviously that requires a bit more usage over time to really tell how reliable, how accurate that this technology is. But during my 1 hour long hands-on session, it worked fine. Everything worked fine. I could even unlock the phone with 2 fingerprints, and yeah, I was living in the future.
Yeah, it's insane.
It was amazing.
It's just cost prohibitive, though, they said right now, yeah?
Yeah, so essentially this requires applying a whole array of optical sensors underneath that AMOLED panel. So that's like you're multiplying the BOM by God knows how much. You know? So yeah, the product manager did say it's going to cost a lot, but at least at this stage they can show that it works.
Right.
It's possible.
And I think with economies of scale, as these sensors go down and get better, more accurate, and go down in price, and start hitting the mid-range and the lower range of phones, it's possible for them to, I think from a engineering manufacturing perspective, I think the holy grail is a single sensor that covers the whole display rather than discrete sensors, so that you can, create basically a single piece of silicon that does fingerprint sensing rather than interconnecting all these sensors underneath the display. That'll bring economies of scale in manufacturing. So the combination of the price going down, the accuracy going up, them being able to scale the size of a single sensor into like a larger surface that they can put under the display. I wouldn't be surprised if it takes less than 2 years for this to become commonplace on high-end phones, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, maybe in about a year's time even.
Yeah.
We shall see.
I mean, we've seen how aggressive. Think about the conversations we were having around phones a year ago with the first Apex concept. It feels to me like 2 years ago, but it's only a year ago. And it brought us pop-up cameras. It spawned this revolution of the race for the complete full screen display that doesn't have any bezels. And we have a few phones on the market now that achieve this and don't make very many compromises for it, including the Mi Mix 3, and others. And I think that's what's exciting about it. And I think that, it's only a year ago, but it just feels like so long ago to me that we were talking about, full screen displays and pop-up cameras. And here we are with like a full display fingerprint scanner. So, wow.
Yeah. And you know what else is invisible here? The buttons.
Yes. And so that's obviously the big deal, right? That's what they billed it as originally, the portless phone.
Portless, buttonless phone. So what's happening here is there are three, I guess you can call them capacitive buttons, because they are based on capacitive sensors. Mm-hmm. But in order to increase the accuracy, they've also added these pressure sensors between these capacitive sensors. So it's like a sandwich. Right. Capacitive, pressure, capacitive, pressure, capacitive. And it worked fine for me, So the problem with HTC's implementation of the pressure sensing buttons. So that was the wrong way of doing it, because you had to like push hard on those fake buttons. Right? Yeah. I don't know if that was your experience.
Oh, it was terrible.
Yeah. So
even
that
with all the software updates, they tried to convince us that they fixed it, but it was never good. But we know it can be done right. Remember all the iPhones like the 8 that have a home button that doesn't physically click? We know it can be done properly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing with Apple's button is that it's just a single button. I think the challenge is to do it with a row of buttons. Right. So, and I'm happy to say that the Vivo Apex does not have this issue. I think they kind of blended the best of both worlds by combining both types of sensors here, and somehow it works. I think they can even dial down the sensitivity a little as well, because it was working a little too well.
Does it give you haptic feedback?
It does. They have a linear motor.
Of course, you need that.
Providing that.
And that's what Apple does really well, I think, with the home button. You really feel that click, right? And that's what you want. So either do you have to place your fingers in a specific location or roughly in that area, and it knows you mean the power button or the volume rocker based on roughly the 1/3 up of the phone you use or something? Is that how it works?
So first of all, there is a mark, a very subtle dash line mark for the power button, because you do need that when the phone is turned off.
Right.
Because otherwise there's no indication. So that's kind of slightly above the halfway point on the right side. Mm-hmm. And then obviously you've got the volume keys. So there's volume down and then volume up at the top. And so when the phone is on, if you touch anywhere around those three buttons, you do get a prompt. Like a temporary these labels.
Like an overlay, right? That point which button's which. Yeah, on the screen.
Exactly.
And then match the position. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, so they stay on for like 3 seconds or so. Yeah, so it's just long enough to give you a hint and short enough to not annoy you, I think. Can
you get like muscle memory? Do you think that if, because volume rocker is definitely something you want to do when you're in a call with the phone to your ear, so.
Yeah. I reckon over time I can learn that. Yeah. Especially with the help of haptic feedback. I'm sure that's possible.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Hopefully, maybe they'll even let you turn off these visual cues as well over time. If you feel confident about feeling those buttons. So yeah.
That's very cool. And so now let's talk about the lack of ports, because I feel that they lied a little bit there. The first photo I saw was of like this little magnetic cable thing stuck to the back of the phone. And I thought at that time that it was kind of more like what Essential did with their accessory mount, where it was just, using wireless data and power transmission with magnets holding things in place. And I was like, yes, that's how you do it. That's smart. You could have, additionally, you could still have Qi charging, but this would be like a more bespoke, much faster, much more focused in one area of the phone coil system that would be more, and magnetically. But then when, I saw more pictures, I realized that's actually a row of contacts, like basically pogo pin type contacts like you see on smartwatches.
It's just USB, right?
Yeah, it's just a bunch of contacts, and then it's magnetically attaching to that. So to me, that's really a port. I'm sorry to say, Vivo, this is a port. Yeah. It's just not a USB-C port, but it's a port.
I think they kind of interchange between portless and holeless.
Holeless. How does that work, though? Where are the microphones?
That's the thing. There is one microphone hole.
Oh, so it is not holeless either.
So it's not holeless. That's why I use port free or portless. But you're right. The technically speaking, that mag port. I mean, it's in the name. It's literally called mag port.
Mag port. It's like MagSafe almost.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I did ask why they didn't just go with A, wireless charging, and B, some sort of wireless data connectivity. Which was what Meizu,
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute, but yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so the guy just said, oh, well, wireless charging is quite mature already, but with the Apex, it's all about trying something totally new, something that's never been done before. So that's why we made this magnetic connector. And I'm like,
Apple made that before. It's called MagSafe.
Not on the phone.
On a phone, yeah, okay. Wait, no, there's been phones with magnetic connectors. One of the Palms. Palm, not Pixie. The little one.
Palm Pre.
Not Pre. The one that was pre-generation, but it was small. The tiny one?
Yeah, it was only on one carrier.
Yeah, and it had a magnetic connector. Exactly like that, with a row of pogo pins, and the headphone jack came as a little magnetic attachment that clunked to the side of the phone. See, so that's why you need.
Actually, I take that back. You know what? Sony, a whole bunch of Sony Xperia phones
did they have that exactly? So I'm gonna say it's not new.
But that's just a charger, though.
Yeah.
There's no data. This one is charging power and data.
The Palm one was charging and data as well. So interesting. I mean, look, the reality is, of course, people forget. So it's the world's first, right?
Well, they never had that Palm phone in China, I guess.
No.
So there's that too.
No.
Yeah. I mean, this is. I think I prefer Meizu's kind of direction. I think I'll skip that for now because we'll be talking about that later. Yeah. Maybe we can fit. Let me see what else. So 5G. There's eSIM, which for obvious reasons I couldn't try. So there's no SIM slot. There's no SIM tray. Apparently that's the feature. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't like that, but I understand what they're trying to do, and I respect that. I think.
Yeah. You know what? There's no front-facing camera here.
Oh, I was going to ask about that. There's none.
Yeah. Oh. So I've been meaning. So I finally got a chance to ask someone, from Vivo about that, and they were being. It was an awkward response. That guy was like, you know, gosh, putting on that PR hat. You know, we have a lot of experience, trying various methods to keep that all screen, that full view display. We made the first pop-up camera. We played with notches. We even did a dual display phone where we blah blah blah. That's what I'm using, by the way, right now. The Vivo NEX Dual Display Edition. It's pretty awesome.
Cool.
I don't use the rear display that often, to be honest, but
that's a cool design. I finally saw it. No, actually, I saw the Nubia one. I didn't see the Vivo one.
Yeah, the Nubia isn't as practical as this, I have to say, at least for the rear screen anyway, because that one's way too tiny. Right. But it looks cool, though. It looks cool. So anyway, going back to this, so that guy was like, he basically just wouldn't budge. He wouldn't say why they didn't include one, why they didn't even do like a punch hole, whatever. But so I was like, so what's the deal here? Are you guys just hiding something? You guys have something even more awesome in the works? And the product manager, strangely, he hesitated for like 3 or 4 seconds. He was smiling, he was grinning. You know, that it was that kind of awkward moment when you know that guy he had so much more to say. He wanted to tell me more, but he just could not. He had to keep his lips tightly sealed. Yeah. So in the end, he said to me, and this is all in Chinese, by the way. Right. So that's the benefit of being able to speak in their mother tongue. He said, anything is possible. There are more options out there. I'll leave that with your wildest imagination.
Well, we know what's inevitably coming, right? What is inevitably coming is a under-display camera, right? Like basically hole punch, but without the hole. Like basically you don't see it when it's not in use.
There's no hole. It's not a hole punch.
Yeah.
We need an awesome name.
And when you turn it on, Ninja black hole appears in the display, and the camera just takes a photo underneath right through the display. This is coming, absolutely. What it requires right now is
I did imagine that. Like, say LCD is just like on and off, right? Right. So if you, I actually forgot which way around it does, but say you turn on the front camera, then the LCDs just empty out and reveal the camera. I know there's still going to be grids of lines in the way because of the matrix, but that's kind of what I've been imagining. Like,
and it's the same with OLED. OLED is so thin that you could probably, if you have a sensitive enough camera with a big enough aperture, like a fast enough lens, you should be able to overcome the transparency loss from having that AMOLED this layer on top or the grid, as you said, on the TFT IPS panel. And the thing is that the grid will not really be that big of a deal because it's so close to the camera that it's always going to be out of focus. So ideally, you just need a really sensitive camera to be able to get over that kind of smudge, as it were, and then take the photo. So all we really need is more sensitive sensors with better performing lenses to make this a reality at this point, I think.
So maybe that's what he was what he was hinting at. So if that's the case, then let's see what they can do with that. I mean, that's the way to go, really. I mean, there's only so much you can do to differentiate your product these days. I mean, we're getting more and more all screen designs. Some of them are doing pop-up cameras. We're getting teardrop notches, which I still personally prefer that over those punch holes.
Really? I love the punch hole over everything else. The fact that it's in the corner and it's out of my way, I just absolutely, absolutely love it. I think it's the best thing we've had in terms of trying to put a camera that takes away display real estate. Really.
I think it's just stupid, though. Like, why don't you just move everything right to that corner?
Because there's a psychological element here, Richard.
Yeah, so that's the thing.
The fact that there is a bit of space around the camera that's display means your Your brain
in
fills
charge.
that in. It fills that in, even though.
So ridiculous.
No, it's real. This has been
I know.
proven. Did you see Marquez's video on this? He talked about this, and the entire time he talks about it, he actually did that on his video. He had a hole punch in his video, a black hole in the corner of his video, and nobody sees it until he points it out by putting his finger up. And you go like, my brain filled that in to be concrete. Because it was on top of a concrete pillar. Holy crap. You made your point so effectively, Marquez. You win. I'll link to that video in the show notes. By the way, I will link to your store, obviously, in the show notes about the Apex, right? But I think there's that psychological thing where we fill in that hole because it's surrounded by the same color or material, and you don't get that with the notch. And so what you're proposing is put a notch in the very corner. And that's fair. I get it. But
that would be the most practical way. Like, you don't waste any extra screen space that way.
But look, I personally have the only phone I have right now. I still don't have a Galaxy S10 review in it, but I have the Honor View 20, and that camera is really small. Like, it just doesn't get in the way. I don't mind.
Yep.
So,
but still, if you think about it, if that gets tucked all the way in the corner, then you get more usable space. That's what I'm saying. I'm more
I agree,
practical.
but I don't think it's going to have the same effect psychologically. You're going to notice it more.
That's why I'm all for having teardrop notches. I think that's the best of both worlds.
You know, I mean, if you think about Essential, the first real notch or hole punch or combination thereof, if you want to call it that, it's kind of a hole punch that continues into a notch, right? And I think if it's big, right? Unfortunately, because it's first generation. But if you made that smaller, then why even bother with a teardrop? Does it have to be in the shape of a teardrop? No, I think it could just be tiny
tucked
little
away. Circle
continued into a rectangle, you know?
Or something like that.
And it could be in the corner, as you said, or anywhere, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about the bottom is bad for selfies, but yeah. I think, honestly, we're heading very rapidly towards a camera behind the display at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I know people in the startup world where there was this one group that tried to get funding to work on that kind of technology. Unfortunately, they didn't get enough funding to continue. But what we discussed just now, that's kind of what they were leaning
working
towards.
on, yeah.
So yeah, I think it's coming. I think it's coming.
Good. We want that. Well, what about the rest of the phone? And I mean, again, it's specs at this point. It's a concept. It doesn't really matter because if it ships in a device, it'll have different specs. But what do they have for a rear camera?
Rear camera, nothing too exciting. It's just numbers. So there's like a 13 megapixel camera plus a 12 megapixel camera. They didn't talk much about that, to be honest. So again, they could have just left those out as well, actually, just like they did with the front camera. I can talk about the audio part, actually.
All right, let's talk about that.
There's no speaker. There's no conventional speaker here for the same reason, because it's a quote-unquote holeless smartphone, except for the microphone on the bottom. So this is... they've actually done something similar before, and this is like a beefed up version. So they've put the actuators right up against the backside, so the glass shell.
Interesting.
And it's hard for me to describe, but you know, the sound of something is affected by the sounding material. Like you know, a speaker sounds wooden because of the wooden material, of the nature of wood, and in this case, it's glass. So naturally, the sound coming out of the phone has a strong bias towards the treble. But however, you've probably played the LG phones.
Yeah, I have. I played with them at MWC. Yeah.
So basically, that's what's happening with this. So once you put the Apex on the table, then you get the full frequency range, and it sounded surprisingly good, to be honest.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. There doesn't seem to be any compromise so long as you're blasting music onto a larger surface, preferably wood, something softer to compensate for the hard glass material. Yep. Yeah, so that's the audio part, and I think that's pretty much it.
I mean, that's a pretty interesting device, and I think for me there's a bunch of things that stand out, but the thing that stands out the most, I think, for me is the entire screen fingerprint surface.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That is the coolest
Everyone's
thing here. And then of course the glass design is, I think, very interesting. I do feel that they cheaped out a little bit by putting that magnetic pogo pin port. I would have put some sort of magnetic wireless data and charging port, which is totally feasible today. And I would think it would have ended up in a much cleaner design. I'm fine with the no front facing because it's a camera, because it's a concept. I'm fine with the one single hole for a microphone. Although my question is, why not put that on the bezel edge where where, for example, the View 20 from Honor has its speaker, right? Like right literally on that little plastic seal that glues the phone together between the display glass and the shell of the phone, right? That would be a good place for the mic. Also, this brings up something we're going to discuss in a second with rumors and stories, but one of the big disappointment for me in my OnePlus 6T review on Geekspin is that I felt like they lost the notification light because of the teardrop and the fact that they relocated the earpiece and in that little slit between the display and the shell. But HTC for years has put little LEDs inside their speaker speakers, and here's the kicker. Honor on the View 20 has exactly done that. They have the earpiece on that edge seam area, and then the inside of it have an LED for notification. I cannot believe that OnePlus did not do that. I mean, notification light to me is one of the big losses on the OnePlus 6T. That, and of course the headphone jack. I love the OnePlus 6 and 6T, but if I have to recommend a phone from OnePlus now, obviously I would say wait till the OnePlus 7. But for last year, it was the OnePlus 6, because even though you have more battery life with the 6T, I feel that headphone jack, notification light, and a fast fingerprint reader in the back of the phone far away trump the other thicker, bulkier design with that in-display fingerprint reader that no matter how you cut it is not reliable for me. Not enough anyway,
Yeah, I think comparing the 6T with the 6, the only real benefit is the longer screen.
And battery life, right? Bigger battery.
Yes, technically speaking. And it's the same cameras anyway, right?
Yeah, same camera, same software, same everything.
I was so disappointed by that OnePlus's in-display fingerprint reader. Because, as you know, like, in a way, Vivo and Oppo and OnePlus all belong
to BBK,
to the same family. Even though what I heard was that for Oppo, OnePlus is just their client.
I see.
That's what their business relationship is. So, but
that
I'm just
explains so many things.
So I'm telling you, I jumped from the OnePlus 6T. McLaren edition, by the way.
Which is what I also use, yeah?
Yep. So straight to the Vivo NEX2 Display Edition.
Right. And
oh my god, that the fingerprint reader on the Vivo is so much better.
So it's a huge improvement, right?
Yeah, 5th generation. I mean, I don't know which one OnePlus was using, but with the OnePlus, it was just struggling whenever I moved to like a really bright place or a totally dark room, because it's all optical, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought, shit, maybe Vivo would have the same issue, but no. At no point did I have any issues. It works just as fast, or even faster than the conventional fingerprint.
Well, I know it can be better. That's exactly my issue with it, is that I know that they could have picked a better generation or a newer version of the sensor and it would be a big improvement. But the Mate 20 Pro has the same problem. It's more reliable than OnePlus 6T, but not by much. And I think that they're the same generation,
Yeah, I think so too.
And you know which phone is also like that to me? Is the Vivo Oppo R17 Pro. I have one.
Interesting.
And it's basically the twin of the OnePlus 6T in so many ways, right? Same display, same teardrop, same fingerprint display.
Cheaper processor.
Yeah, cheaper processor and a very interesting camera system in the back with the dual aperture and the time of flight camera. But I'm talking about overall in terms of like the display subsystem, like the fact that I'm pretty much guaranteed that those displays are interchangeable, including the fingerprint sensor at this point.
Yeah, that would be funny.
Yeah. But you know, that's the nature of you know, companies that share technology. It's actually probably beneficial for us because their economies of scale, you know, make that much more viable, right? So we can't complain too much. Yeah. But the Apex really, I feel like, you know, I like that Vivo went through the effort of showing us a concept phone and especially flying folks out there to look at it. I wish it included me. Hopefully I can build that relationship with them. But the thing is, it's like, it's really nice to have a company go and say, look, this is kind of what we're thinking. And, you know, then eventually deliver some of that because it builds halo and excitement, right? And gets people to pay attention, say, oh, wow, Vivo is doing something interesting, and I'm curious what I'm going to be able to benefit from in the next few months when I upgrade my phone to a Vivo phone, right? So good marketing for them, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still surprised that they're not that big in the West, especially Europe, because that's kind of Oppo's territory still.
Exactly.
And obviously OnePlus. So I'm surprised. Yeah, for a brand that's not that big in the West, they're doing so much more than what Oppo and OnePlus are seemingly working on.
Yeah, it's really interesting how they all have their personality, those BBK brands. And I like that. I feel like, you know, it's nice to have that variety within the same umbrella.
Yeah, they need that.
So let's talk about the Meizu Zero. Just because it's so close and so related, right? Do you want to fill people in on this, basically?
Yeah, so Meizu, you know, used to be a big deal in China. We're talking about before Xiaomi even existed. So they recently came up with also a concept phone called the Zero. And as you can tell from the name, it has no buttons, no holes, blah, blah, blah. Well, actually...
It does have a microphone hole.
It has 4 microphone holes.
Oh, well.
From what I can see. So
there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
So it has holes.
Yeah. So they took this to Indiegogo, did a crowdfunding campaign, but these phones, they're not cheap. We're talking about $1,300 a piece. And then there's like a $3,000 exclusive pioneering unit, some super ridiculous exclusive device that they only had 1 unit.
Wow.
So yeah, so the campaign lasted for 1 month, and in the end, they only had 29 backers. The project failed. So yeah, so people started talking about it, and people were going to Meizu's official forum, where the CEO is known to hang out. So eventually the CEO, Jack Wong, responded to what happened here, and he just said, oh, you know, this crowdfunding, so I'm reading this quote, which I translated.
Oh, go for it, yeah. So
this crazy guy just said, this crowdfunding project was just the marketing team messing about. The Holeless phone is just a development project from the R&D department. We never intended to mass produce this project.
You know that's a lie, right?
Wow.
I think it's a lie. I think that they were planning, clearly they were planning to make it, and then it went south, and now they're saying it's a marketing. Like, I think that phone was much more realizable than, you know, a full fingerprint display Vivo Apex phone. And they could have made it. The prices seem reasonable for me in terms of what they were delivering, even though I didn't think it was a viable thing, which is why it crashed and burned and didn't get the follow through on Indiegogo that it needed to succeed. But I don't think that phone is impossible to make. And I think that phone is perfectly fine if you want that, if that's something you want. But they failed at their campaign, and now they're backtracking and saying it was a marketing exercise. I really feel that's what happened here.
Yeah, I mean, Jack Wong is known to talk shit as well. So yeah, that and you know he knows how to hype.
Right.
But saying something like this, that's not good. That's not good for.
That's what I'm saying. It's not good. That's why I think it's just an excuse at this point. Because can you imagine saying this ahead? Like if the intent was, oh, it's going to fail. We know it's going to fail. It's just marketing. The people who back you, of course, you need to refund them, and you would. That's not the issue. But I mean, they are putting a lot of their like hope and dreams into this. I guess. No, that's not cool. That's abusing crowdfunding, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because since the project failed, there's no commitment.
No, of course not. But I'm just saying that using crowdfunding, if the intent from the get-go was to use crowdfunding purely as a marketing exercise and not at all caring if it would fail, that I feel is disingenuous is the word. Disingenuous to crowdfunding. And that's not cool. You don't use crowdfunding for that, especially when you're a large company. I actually hate large companies using crowdfunding because they don't need to, and it's BS. They could create their own like equivalent to crowdfunding on their website, like pre-order lottery system, whatever, like OnePlus did. You could do your own thing and not poison the well, because look, crowdfunding is going to get rep, but I worked at Pebble for a while and we used crowdfunding, and we showed that it was a viable thing, and it was a viable thing until people abused it. And it got basically corrupted in many ways. And it's unfortunate because there are many, many people out there. I'm not even talking about consumer technology here. I'm not even talking about startups that make gadgets. I'm talking about like people who just want to like make a run of 50 cool bamboo mugs. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't have the money to do this without crowdfunding. Crowdfunding was a really good solution. And actually, honestly, think that Pebble in its later days, like I wasn't a part of this, but like when they continued crowdfunding, once they were established as a startup and well-funded, I think was a ridiculous abuse of crowdfunding as well, I'm not saying, like, I stand by this. I'm a very, very passionate about crowdfunding and it's a very sad state right now. And this doesn't help.
Yeah, even I think this is a big problem in China, but at least when these so-called crowdfunding sites started in China, it already quickly became a pre-ordering site anyway. Yeah, it's like a bit like Groupon, group bulk purchases.
Look, I think using it for pre-order is a difference. If you're a small company and that's all you can do, I think that, and you plan to deliver and you're honest and real and you're going to work hard and you're going to make it happen, I think if the intentions come from the right place, I don't think that's wrong for a small company to use it for pre-orders. It's a very good e-commerce solution. But I don't think that a big company should use it, and certainly not with absolutely no intent on shipping whatsoever, right? Yeah. That's when it becomes like, oh my God, seriously, what are you doing?
Yeah. So basically, Meizu totally screwed up here.
I think so. I mean,
some of the fans said they were disappointed. Some were even saying things like, "Oh, you shouldn't be so direct with what you say." I'm sure some of the fans were I don't know how many fans are left, to be honest. Like, everyone's going all over the places, like Xiaomi.
I mean, how is Meizu doing out there? Because, we have no sense of this. I mean, I know Meizu as a Chinese brand that was very successful. And it seems to me like Xiaomi totally stole their show. I have not seen a Meizu phone that was any good in so long. Do they even play the game? Are they in the game? Do they have a flagship that's worthy right now?
The most recent flagship I played with, I can't say I was impressed. If you're asking which flagship impressed me the most, it would be the one with the little secondary screen on the back.
I remember that. Yeah,
Meizu 16th Pro, I think it's called.
That's right. That was cool, right?
That was kind of cool. At least they were trying something different,
Yeah.
But after that, apparently that happened around the time when they had some big management changes. So that kind of explains a lot. They haven't made it. They haven't made anything that interesting since then.
Wow, that's kind of disappointing.
And I mean, they only came out with this stupid Indiegogo campaign, which didn't work out, and they're kind of digging themselves a hole with that response because that Jack Wong guy is a loose cannon. He just says shit.
Yeah, he's crazy.
He is crazy.
Cool. Well, listen, I want to quickly jump into the topics a little bit on that Oppo, simply because I want to talk about the OnePlus 7 very briefly. Oppo F11 Pro was announced about 10 days ago now. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because, well, it's interesting. I like talking about Chinese phones because they're interesting, and my audience really seems to like it. I also have a lot of people from India on the listening to the show, so obviously, you know, they pay attention to phones out of China more. But to me, the story here is that, you know, a lot of Oppo phones kind of indicate what OnePlus might be up to, and this to me looks like it might be showing where the OnePlus 7 is heading, especially since there's been leaks and rumors of the OnePlus 7 having a pop-up selfie camera. And so that F11 Pro, it's quite affordable, right? I think it's even made of plastic in the back. Plastic to feel like glass, but nonetheless plastic. And it has a pop-up camera in the back. And it has, I don't know the specs, it's mid-range.
MediaTek.
MediaTek, yeah. Is it Helio P70, right?
P70.
And so, I mean, what's interesting to me about this phone is that a pop-up camera at a $250 price point, right? Is that,
trying to find
maybe it's a bit more, 300? And then it has, because it has a full front, you know, display that covers the front almost fully, with a tiny, maybe little bezel at the bottom for the LCD circuit, backlight and stuff. And then,
oh, check this out.
What?
It has a micro USB port.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, you know, so many of the cheaper Chinese phones still have micro USB. I do not understand this. Huawei does this with the Honor brand. Get this, the Honor 8X, which is a great phone for the price, like in the $250 price range. It's a fantastic phone. It's completely let down by the micro USB on it. Like, why? Like,
I mean,
can you, like, you're in China. I mean, you're in Hong Kong, but you are very connected to the Chinese phone ecosystem. Tell me, why is this happening? Is this for India? What is the deal here? Because USB-C, I know, is more expensive chipset-wise, a little bit, but at this point, it should be a no-brainer that you put USB-C in everything. I can understand 2 years ago, but now?
Apparently, it's when they keep a micro USB port on a new phone. This phone's going to not just India, but even less developed markets.
I see.
Could be Indonesia. Could be I don't know if the Philippines counts, but you get the idea.
But why not get these people to switch over? Like, why don't flood their markets with cheap USB-C cables at the same time? And like, that way we all benefit. Like,
because they're more price sensitive, apparently.
But it can't be that big of a difference anymore.
I don't know.
It was years ago. I get it, but chipset price wise. But wow.
I can only assume that that's the kind of market where where people aren't keen on buying accessories.
Right.
That would be the only possible reason. I should look this up really. But every time I ask, like whenever I see a phone with a micro USB port, and I ask them, they always say it's because certain markets they don't want to make people buy this new type, spend more money on this new type of cable, or change everything, and they're very conscious of what cables they already have. They want to keep it that way, blah blah blah. I don't know. It's a certain mindset over there.
Huh, interesting. I just feel like it's not helping the future very much. Like, you know, I know I'm looking at it from a very different market, and I'm aware of my privilege and my position in this world, right? Like, I would want to make this clear to people who are listening. I understand this, but I still feel that it's only delaying the inevitable pain that people are going to have. There's going to be a pain. We've all seen it happen. iPhone users really experience that with a 30-pin to Lightning transition. But that pain needs to happen, because if we live in a world where everybody's got USB-C, like, that can become a universal standard like A did for so long.
Put it this way. Okay, imagine you're one of the local residents in, I don't know, Indonesia. You don't have a big budget, and you see this new phone. Okay, it's affordable, but it has USB-C port. But at home, you've got a whole bunch of micro USB cables from previous phones. So what do you do with those cables?
But we all went through this.
Yeah, but they don't necessarily change phones that often. Maybe what I'm trying to say is, I'm just imagining.
No, I understand what you're saying. I get it. This is difficult.
They may struggle to think what they can do with these cables that suddenly become obsolete.
So cables are super cheap, right? Like we go to Hong Kong in the computer market and we buy them for 10 cents a pop, right? Now they're not very good ones.
No, not 10 cents. Not 10 cents.
What are they? 50 cents?
No, more than that. We're not talking about bulk buy.
Well, let's say Meizu has a budget and Huawei and Honor have the budget to bulk buy. So why don't they throw 2 cables in there, an adapter and 2 cables? I know it's going to cost some money, but if they do that to everyone, they can bring everybody to the new technology.
No. It's not about, I think it's more about what they can't do with the quote-unquote obsolete belongings that they have at home. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Like
they would feel bad. They don't want to abandon the things that still work.
Right.
I think I'm just whiffing it, you know. I guess that's the problem. I think that's the problem. That's like the cultural thing. They don't want to waste.
Understood. Yeah.
Things.
No, I get it. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's not about what you can give them. It's about what should they do.
It's interesting. I wonder how long this is going to happen. It's got to eventually switch over. Like it can't go on like this. It's such a better it's such a better standard. Like in every possible way. Like fast charging support, all kinds of things. I mean,
yeah.
But anyway, like the R11 looks interesting to me. Is that what it's called? R11? No, F11?
No, F11.
F11, thank you. The F11 looks interesting to me for the money, and I think it's interesting because it shows what potentially we're going to see on the OnePlus 7, which I know is going to make so many people cringe because, you know, there's so many issues here. Number one, no waterproofing. Number two, the time for the camera to open to get face identification, which on the OnePluses is very fast. Not secure, but very, very fast right now. And is going to slow down because of the mechanics involved in opening and closing the camera. All kinds of other issues, reliability, longevity, because as soon as you add moving parts, even though you do a very good job in building it, it's, you know, it's going to cause problem. I was at MWC and I saw the Energizer 18,000 milliamp hour phone, the big thick slab.
Crazy phone. And
it has a pop-up selfie camera as well. And that was broken. Like it was, it had been dropped with the, and it's very heavy as you can imagine because the battery pack. It had been dropped on the camera with the camera open, and you could not see physically a lot of, like, there was no impact damage, but the camera had, like, it would still pop out and retract properly, but the actual sensor had a big crack in it. Like the lens was cracked. You could see clearly that something had happened to it.
Yeah.
So
that's what happens when you only have one prototype.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, they had a bunch there. They had a bunch.
What, of the same model?
Yeah, yeah. No, I remember their phones are made by Elephone.
Ugh.
They're the same phones. So what they did, well, this is a unique phone for Energizer. Remember, Energizer brand is a French company that licensed the brand and makes these phones in China, made by Elephone, sold by Avenir Telecom is the name of the company in France that rebrands them Energizer. So that phone is actually an Elephone phone that they re-engineered the casing to put a larger battery in. And they actually also sell the regular Elephone version of this, which is phone with a big battery, like a 6,000 or 7,000 milliamp hour battery, but looks normal like a phone. And they sell both. And they're exactly identical in terms of specs and in terms of aesthetics, other than the one is thicker because of that massive 18,000 milliamp hour battery. I did a bit of digging after that because I was like, okay, who's making these phones? Why do they have pop-up cameras? Why does this phone look familiar to me? And it was Elephone. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, pop-up cameras, I'm not against. Like, I want you to understand, folks. I just feel like OnePlus is heading in the wrong direction. I feel that the OnePlus 7... You know, here's what my wish list is OnePlus 7. Of course, 5G, 855, good price, great features, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff you expect. But here's what I want. I want a hole punch display or a teardrop notch, I want a really, really good in-display fingerprint sensor to replace what's kind of broken on the 6T, either capacitive or optical, whatever. And I want a better camera system in the back with time of flight. And I wanted a headphone jack to come back. And that's
not happening.
No, but it should. But it should, because OnePlus made a promise to its customers that it broke. And they have a chance to come back on it. I mean, there's rumors that the P30 Pro or P30, one of them, will have a headphone jack. When you consider that they removed it from previous iterations, that's interesting. If maybe Huawei will do it, maybe they won't. If they do it, though, that sets a precedent for a company coming back on something. And I don't know why OnePlus wouldn't. And more importantly, the big thing I want on a OnePlus 7 is a proper IP rating, which I know is not going to happen because it's going to have a pop-up camera, right? So, but this is where I think OnePlus should be headed, and I think they're making mistakes here. You know?
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think as cool as it looks, I don't think pop-up camera is the way forward. It's like it's kind of backwards. I
think them doing it is simply because they want to be able to say we have a full screen display with no notches, no interruptions, and I get that. But I don't know if I think the Mi Mix 3 does a much better job here. Having it's still not waterproof and still subject to moving parts, but at least it's not electric. And it gives you that fidget spinner thing that's so cool. That I finally played with it at MWC because I don't have a review in it of the regular one yet. I played with the 5G version. And wow, I love that. It's so well done. It feels so good. You know, you don't need a motor. Just do it that way.
The only justification would be for fitting a larger sensor and, which means a better camera. Then, yeah, I'd be fine with that because I can't say I'm totally happy with the front camera on the 6 and 6T.
It's not good. I mean, once you play with a Pixel, nothing's good. Not even the Galaxy S10. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Pixel 3 and 3 XL. Once you take a selfie with that phone, you never go back. It's unbelievable to me. I literally will pull out that phone specifically for selfies and anything portrait. I take all my rear portrait photos of other people with the Pixel 3 XL without even thinking about it. Nothing can touch it. I have tried every phone that has time of flight, multiple cameras, blah blah blah. None of them can do a photo portrait mode like the single little measly lens on the back of the Pixel 3 XL and Pixel 3 and Pixel 2 and Pixel 2 XL by association, since they inherited a lot of that. It's crazy to me that nobody's matching. I think Samsung's come very close with the new Galaxy S10 series, but from what I've seen, because I don't have one, but nobody touched. I mean, OnePlus not even in the same league. Like iPhone. I actually think that it's better than it was, but it's interesting because I've had this discussion on the podcast a few times. I think the iPhone XR is the better camera of the three. And people are like, are you crazy? It's missing a camera. I'm like, exactly. And that's the point. It's the better camera because when you take portraits with the XS and XS Max, it uses a telephoto for the portrait. So it has a worse f-stop, like a smaller aperture, and a worse sensor. Why is that? So they could easily in software change that because the XR uses the main lens and uses fake bokeh, like using the dual pixel autofocus to get the layer of depth, and it does such a better job in low light. You can take portraits with the XR that blow away the XS.
But do you know why the 10 and 10S use the telephoto lens to do portrait? I never understood that.
Because that's what they've done with the iPhone 8 and Plus and the iPhone 10.
But why?
And they haven't evolved it. And maybe they didn't feel that their AI blurring for portrait mode was as good at cutting out faces as their assisted by another lens mode, and they decided to stick with that. I think they should do a software revision and swap the two, or give people the option, because it would be much better.
So telephoto is just for the sake of adding real bokeh?
Yeah. I mean, it adds enough real bokeh that the algorithm can do a better job at cutting the face out. But honestly, if you see a 10R portrait taken with a rear camera, it's no contest, and especially in low light. It's like, and also you don't have to reframe, you don't have to pull back because it doesn't, you can get close-up portraits that look really great. Anyway, whatever. It's just an aside saying that front-facing camera are making selfies worse by far in the I I really feel that selfies taken with front cameras in the last few years have gotten worse because of the beautification modes and the crappy portraits that don't work and the lenses and the sensors being so bad. Like the only one that really feels like pushes the envelope forward and really makes it look like you took this with a DSLR or like an RX 100 or something really nice are selfies taken with a Pixel 3 XL and 3. They're just like, wow, really amazing. Even I'm blown away and I take one and I'm like, really? Wait, like what sorcery is this? Like this looks like something out of Canon 5D with like an f1.8 lens. Like, Jesus.
No.
I mean, at the resolutions that we're used to on a phone. Like, don't get me wrong, right? Like, I'm not pixel peeping here. I'm just saying, like, overall detail, look, color balance, lighting, everything is just so solid. But what I'm saying is that you can't even get skin that looks realistic on any freaking front-facing camera outside of the Pixel. Like, even if you turn beauty mode, the Galaxy S10 still smooths faces out.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell is wrong with these cameras?
Even Vivo is just as guilty. Yeah.
So anyway, that's basically the whole thing about the Oppo F11. Interesting device. Forebearer of what we might see on the OnePlus 7 for better or for worse. Let's jump on a couple of things. There are more leaks on we just mentioned the P30 series, Huawei's upcoming flagship that will be released in Paris on March 26th. There have been a bunch of leaks. We covered them last week about the periscope, zoom lens, etc. But the latest leaks are specs from the Taiwan and Indonesia, I think, licensing bodies. So anyway, we got some specs. It looks like from the specs, it's going to be what am I talking about? Kirin 980, right? Same chip as the Mate 20 Pro. And then we're going to see, some RAM, some amounts of RAM, which I don't remember right now. I think it's 6 to 8 on the P30 and 8 for sure on the P30 Pro or something like that. There's also a P30 Lite that appears in there, and then their model numbers are shown. Anyway, I think it's exciting. There's a lot of excitement building around this phone. I'm personally very stoked. I love the P20. I'm a huge fan of the Mate 20 Pro. I use almost all my product photos taken since the Mate 20 Pro was launched. I've been taken with the Mate 20 Pro. Like at CS and at MWC, I did not use my camera to use for product photos. I used the Mate 20.
I don't know. I tried using the I've been trying the Mate 20 Pro, and there's still something about the camera that I don't like. The greenery still has always been Huawei's weakness, so we can leave that out. I don't know. It's clear that they're still throwing a lot of additives, MSG, into their photos.
Yeah, maybe, but I'm just saying it's finally the first phone I've been able to use professionally to take photos of other phones and use them for publication and not feel like I'm missing out on anything.
I don't know. I see a lot of compression, and it's just not natural. At least compared to the OnePlus 6T, anyway. But then again,
I think the OnePlus 6T is very, very, very good for this time and the 6 as well, obviously for OnePlus. I mean, they've really stepped up their game. But they can't compete in low light with the Pixel or the Mate at all. Like not even remotely. No. And that's the problem, right? I take a lot of these product photos in bad lighting, and it just works, right? Yeah. I use my Pixel 3 XL to do product photos a little bit as well, but not quite as much. The Mate 20 has really become my battle axe now, and I do a lot of my video content on the Pixel 3 XL with an external mic. So I'm losing less and less real cameras. That's the reality of it. It also makes my travel a lot lighter, which is great. But anyway, P30 leaks, P30 Pro leaks, P30 Lite leaks. What we know so far is quad camera on the P30 Pro, some sort of telephoto with periscope type design, maybe with a variable zoom, mechanical variable zoom. We know there's going to be a wide angle. We know there's going to be a really big sensor for the main camera, like the Mate 20 Pro and P20 Pro. And then we're going to see a time of flight camera added to that for assisting with portrait and getting a depth map. And, I think we're going to start seeing time of flight cameras on all the flagships front and back in the next year, because for AR, as soon as you have a 5G phone, AR becomes a much more viable thing because of low latency on the network. So you can start doing some cool stuff, and you want that time of flight camera front and back. I think it's more like a let's see what they do with it, let's build it, thing at this point.
Have you found much use with that time of flight camera on your Honor View 20?
No, I mean there are some AI apps that that are more demo-ish than anything. They're cool. Like they have games I think that showcase. Basically, you can put the phone. And then it's
like a dancing game.
Dancing games and stuff, yeah. So that's cool. It's more of a demo and proof of concept. Same with the Oppo R17 that I have, R17 Pro. It has a time of flight camera, and honestly, I'm not noticing on these two phones a particularly improvement in terms of portrait photography brought on by the time of flight sensor, but I'm also even not sure they use the time of flight sensor for portrait yet. Yeah. I am pretty confident that if Huawei puts a time of flight sensor on the back of the P30 Pro, it will have some purpose for the whole Leica subsystem. So I think that'll be interesting. I'm much more excited about what LG showed at MWC on the G8 in the front time of flight camera. They have a very, very advanced sensor there. And that's going to not only does allow you Face ID, like proper face identification that's secure, like the iPhone does, but it also does crazy things like read the veins in your palm for identification and let you do gesture stuff, which I think is completely stupid and gimmicky. But the point is that it's a very precise, time of flight front camera system. And it could benefit the phone in some way. But I don't think the use cases and apps are there yet. And what I really want is Huawei to impress us and say, look, we finally are the first to use a time of flight sensor in a meaningful way for rear photography on a camera-centric phone that, makes use of that depth information to give us some a quantum leap forward in camera photography, which the P20 Pro introduced a quantum leap forward in camera photography. And so to some extent the Mate 20, because it further refined that, but added the wide angle. And that wide angle is the first and one of a few today that has autofocus, which lets you do macro photography and all kinds of interesting. That's the other reason I use it for product photos. If I want to take a close-up of something, I can focus up to 1 centimeter on the Mate 20 Pro with the wide-angle lens. So, and it's not the best in low light compared to the main sensor, but it still does really well because it has that AI stabilization that it benefits from. And I mean, again, I think Huawei has done some pretty incredible work in terms of imaging in the last year. And so I'm really stoked about it. We'll see what the P30 is going to bring to the table.
So apparently there are some real sample photos of the Huawei P30 Pro now.
Yeah, well, that I don't want to get into that whole saga of like people. That seems to happen every time where they take photos with, they claim the photos, or they don't claim, but they imply the photos were taken with the device, but it actually were taken with a different camera, usually a big DSLR of some kind. I do not understand why they keep making these mistakes. All the manufacturers do it. It's stupid. Yeah,
I just don't understand why they don't just show off their real sample photos in the first place, because full well that they can do it, and they have great images, they have great cameras, and what I'm looking at here, they look great, they look fine, but God, I don't know. And I'm not one of those people who are like, oh, Huawei should be prosecuted for that. I don't give a damn, to be honest.
No, I think it's people are really being stupid about this. It's like Nokia did it a while back, and thankfully they didn't do that with the 9 PureView. But like everybody's like, so many of them have done it. I don't know exactly, but I remember this scandal coming up with multiple manufacturers over the years, and scandal is a big word here. It's really nothing. Like, I just forget it. Like, just give me the real photos. I can't wait to get my hands on the phone and actually try it. And I'm sure it won't disappoint. It'll probably need a lot of software tweaking in its first iterations, like the P20 Pro required, like the Mate 20 Pro. But look, the reality is Huawei has something special with their partnership with Leica, and they've delivered on that. And, we should all be very excited about the potential of what could happen here. And let's see what happens,
Well, the photos I'm seeing, they look fantastic. They're coming from a Malaysian actress called Fasha Sanda.
Okay.
These are her wedding photos. And
oh, wow.
Obviously, Huawei's covering cost, I guess. They look great.
Well,
they
good.
look great. The zoom.
I'll have to find an article about that.
I'll send you a link.
At the time we started recording this, I wasn't aware that these photos existed. So
it just happened. It literally, someone just tagged me.
Cool. Yeah. Share that with me at some point. We got a very little time left, and I want to cover a few more things very, very quickly. Let's cover one thing, and that's the you folks at Engadget published some Nokia 9 PureView samples about a week ago, and they didn't make it in time for the last podcast. So, what's your pixel peeping analysis so far?
I would need to get the raw images to really give a better judgment. But I mean, I think the dynamic range is actually pretty good. I don't know. I mean, there's a very limited set of images here. A lot of them are not well lit, I would say. I don't. I
feel. My take is, I feel it's hard to tell from these samples. Chris did the review, the samples, right?
Yeah,
and I think that he obviously had limited time with the device because I feel like there could be a lot, much more interesting photo walk to be done with this device coming. And I think that knowing Chris, and he's really awesome.
He's very busy.
He's been super busy, and I think he didn't have access for a long time. But so again, the proof is in the pudding, very much like the P30 Pro. I'm waiting to get my, you can get the Nokia 9 PureView in the US right now. I mean, I think they're sold out in many places, but for the first few days that it was sold, I could have walked into a Best Buy and bought one. But I'd rather wait for reviewing it. If I start buying phones that I'm really excited about, I'm going to start really hurting budget wise. So, they promised me a review in it. It's coming. I will absolutely let you folks know what's up. I think this is going to be a monster, especially if you're willing to use RAW and start doing some developing in Lightroom, which is included in the phone. So we'll see what happens. I'm really excited about this. I don't think it's going to solve, and I think it's going to definitely be a quantum leap in imaging again, but it's not going to solve all the problems that we have on mobile photography. Is just going to add a whole new dimension, like the ability to refocus, the ability to get different angles, the ability to get really great dynamic range. This is one of the things that I think that nobody really talks about is, because we have HDR now, we can capture pretty good dynamic range with HDR, but intrinsic dynamic range that's built into the sensor in the camera system is something that's really lacking on phones compared to like standalone cameras. And if they can solve that, that's what I mean by a quantum leap forward in imaging for mobile. So let's see what happens with these 3 monochromes and 2 color lenses, sensors rather. I'm curious to find out. Yeah. So, Richard, we should wrap it up, unfortunately. But do you want to tell folks where they can find you on the internet? Of course, you write for Engadget, but you have like Twitter and Instagram handles and stuff probably you want to share?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm at Richard Lai. So I'm Richard Lai on Twitter. And I think it's the same for Instagram. It's Richard Lai HK. But although I'm not that active, I should work harder on that. But I'm mostly active on Twitter. So yeah. Come find me and let's have a good time. Absolutely.
You definitely should follow Richard. Richard is, like me, he's been in the business for a really long time. He's based in Hong Kong. He's got really good access to a lot of the Asian market devices and relationships with people there. So his insight on Engadget articles is particularly exciting to me. And of course, you write for Engadget English, but you're also the editor-in-chief for Engadget Chinese. So if you know how to read, go for the Engadget Chinese site as well, right?
Yeah, that's right. Chinese.engadget.com.
There you go. And you know where to find me. I'm at Tankgirl on Instagram and Twitter. That's TNKGRL, like the comic book character, but drop the vowels. And my Twitter has, rantings and ravings, and my Instagram has beautiful photos of wherever I'm traveling, but also devices. I like to take device photos and put them up on my Instagram. And then finally, mobiletechpodcast.com is where the podcast lives, and you should subscribe if you just happen to listen to this show and you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, tell your friends. We're also on all the big platforms like Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Overcast, TuneIn Radio, a bunch of other places. So it should be easy for you to find the show if you don't want to just use the RSS feed at mobiletechpodcast.com. And then also there's a YouTube channel that goes with the show. And it's youtube.com/Miriam Jouar. My full name spelled out. If you don't know how to spell that, very easy. Go to my Twitter @tankgirl without the vowels and find my name there. Paste it next to youtube.com without the space, and bang, you get a YouTube channel, which is a complement to the show and has videos, hands-ons, lots of unboxing. I like unboxing things and stuff like that. So check it out. Finally, I want to thank our sponsor, Audible. Audible.com is where it's at for all things that are audiobooks. If you love books, but for some reason you cannot physically read them on a Kindle or on paper because, maybe you drive all day or something, I think it's a great platform to explore. They have a really good selection. And my favorite thing about it is a lot of books actually read by the authors who wrote them. So you kind of get their voice and it's really, really cool. And so here's the thing. You can get 30-day free trial by going in the show description here below and get that special deal, and you'll support the podcast. If you are listening and you want to type in a URL, it's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. That's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. 30-day free trial if you join, and you will support the podcast in doing so. It's not just like a normal sign up. So consider it if you like books and you want to get a great audiobook platform. Thanks, Audible, for being a longtime sponsor of the show. Really appreciate it. And Richard, thank you for being a guest on show number 101. Woohoo, right?
Yay. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's have you again sometime in the future soon. And stay tuned for another show. We'll have something for you next week. I'll be at GDC, the Game Developer Conference in San Francisco. So
nice.
Maybe we'll have a bit of a game-focused show. I'm not sure yet. We'll see what guests I can line up. So stay tuned, and cheers, everybody.
Bye.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.